Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our seminar this evening. So my name is Wendy. I'm the Child Development Center social worker and program officer. So I'll be the facilitator for tonight, and our topic is on the power of positive parenting. So before we start, because we have a lot of parents joining us, which you might not know us very well. So please spare me a few minutes while I explain to you who we are. And then after that, we would get into our seminar tonight. So the Child Development Center, we're a registered NGO in Hong Kong since 1976. Our mission is for every child to succeed in their unique learning journey and to empower their families on the way as well. We offer specialized education group programs, individual therapies, and assessments for children with a wide range of abilities. Children range from 6 months to up to the age of 16, and we offer services in English, Cantonese, and Mandarin as well. We provide parent education, so like the talk tonight. We also offer practical advice and share information with families to help them meet their long-term and short-term needs and goals as well. So in terms of our group programs, we offer a 1-to-3 adult to child ratio. We also have an interdisciplinary team. So we have music therapists, speech and language therapists, occupational therapists, SEN teachers, special childcare workers, psychologists, behavioral therapists, and of course, social workers as well. So we offer early intervention groups. So in this group, children would get biannual assessments to track their development and whether they've met their goals, their progress, etc. We also offer individual sessions, so either ABA, ST, maybe OT, music therapy, like I mentioned just now. We also have more focused group programs. So for example, attention group, groups that focus more on social skills. We also have something called a Lego-based therapy as well. We also offer screenings, assessments, and consultations as well. So here are some of the programs that we'll be running. So for summer, we don't have a specific summer camp or summer group. What we do offer is our ongoing programs all year round. The main difference is that parents can choose to join for the summer period only. So these are some of the events that we've had before. So at the top left corner, you can see we went to Disneyland. We also collaborated with HKU Dental Clinic as well, where our children went to be a mini dentist where they check their parents' teeth, and then also the dentist checked their teeth as well. And then the picture over, you'll see our music therapy group session. The next one would be our winter celebration. We also had sports day at the beach. We had a dog come in where we did dog therapy. We also have yoga, etc. as well. So if you want to know more about our events or anything upcoming, do go to our website and have a look. So these are Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call or shoot us an email, and then we'll see how we can help. So let's get started. So the power of positive parenting is the first seminar in our series. So for those of you who are able to attend further seminars, our next seminar next week would focus on raising confident, competent children. And the week after, we will talk about raising resilient children who can recognize, express, and manage their feelings. So tonight, we will start with the principles of positive parenting, and I hope you find this session informative and helpful. During this presentation, we will first take a look at the hopes and dreams we have when we become parents. We will then turn to some of the realities of raising children and being a parent. We will talk about children's behavior, which can be one of the toughest part of being a parent. I would also introduce to you positive parenting and the 5 key principles and ideas behind this approach of being a parent. And some of this might sound quite familiar because I'm pretty sure you're doing some of these things already, but please bear with me and see if there's anything new in terms of perspectives, ideas that you can take home with you this evening. So my presentation overall would take around 1 hour, and at the end, there would be some time for discussion and questions as well. Okay. So when most of us become parents, we have hopes and dreams about parenting and also dreams for our children. Most parents are optimistic that we will do a good job and that being a parent will be a positive experience, that we would raise healthy, well-adjusted children. What skills would you want your children to develop or have? I'm pretty sure you've thought about this before. So I think some of the skills that you might want your children to have might be able to communicate their needs, get on well with others, trying to do their best, whether it is at school, in other hobbies, sports, etc. And for them to be able to manage their emotions, being able to feel good about themselves as well. And we can accomplish all of these while also being able to create a safe, secure, loving, and low conflict environment for our children. We should be really very pleased with ourselves. So it is extremely rewarding and enjoyable to be a parent, but it's not always easy. Parenting can also be demanding, frustrating, and exhausting. Parents have the important role of raising the next generation, yet most of us being parents begin parenting unprepared for what lies ahead. So we all have to learn as we go. It is important to understand that there is no single right way to be a parent. Ultimately, it is up to you as a parent, to decide which values, skills, and behaviors you want to encourage in your child and to develop your own approach to parenting. Let's take a look at this quite interesting employment opportunity, this job description. So, one couple to raise a child, no experience necessary. Applicants must be available 24 hours per day, 7 days a week, and must provide food, shelter, clothing, and supervision. No training provided, no salary. Applicants are expected to pay at least 6 million Hong Kong dollars over the next 18 years. Accidental applicants accepted. Single people may apply, but should be prepared for twice the work. If you saw this job application or job description, would this be a job that you would want to opt for? Probably not, right? But yet here we are as parents, and this is exactly what we have to do. So being a parent is also very difficult because we get bombarded with messages about how difficult and demanding being a parent is. Shock tactics make being a parent appear hazardous and fraught with danger. It is no wonder that fewer and fewer people are becoming parents and that many people are having children much later on in life. But I do have some good news for you. Most parents do a very good job. Bearing in mind that these statistics are not based in Hong Kong, but I think it is quite applicable to parents all around the world. So the majority of parents report that they do feel confident in their parenting and they find it rewarding and fulfilling. The majority of families do have very well-adjusted children, but no one has ever said that parenting will be easy. Dealing with our children's behavior can be the most stressful. So all children test their limits at times, and that can be a challenge for us as parents. Our expectations are very important here. Some difficult behavior is normal, and some parenting traps are inevitable. But if we can effectively manage the common everyday behavioral problems, such as maybe disobedience, fighting, refusing to go to bed when children are young, we can prevent more serious problems such as lying, stealing, getting into trouble at school, or involvement with drugs from developing later on. Simply wishing and hoping that children will grow out of these behavioral problems will not make it happen. So positive parenting is an approach to raising children that aims to help children develop and manage their behavior and emotions in a positive and non-hurtful way. It is based on strong, nurturing relationships, good communication, and positive attention. So positive parenting would include emphasizing and focusing on the positive, planning ahead to prevent problems, using everyday situation and experiences to help our children learn and to motivate them, and to create opportunities for children to learn and develop new skills. Don't worry, I will go into these in a bit more detail later on. So children benefit from positive parenting. When they experience positive parenting, they are more likely to develop their skills, do better at school, build friendships, and feel good about themselves. And children who grow up with positive parenting are also likely to have fewer behavioral and emotional problems and are less likely to become involved in drug abuse or delinquent behavior as well. What about some of the benefits for parents? So there are positives for parents, benefits for parents. So you might feel more confident and competent in your role as a parent, feel less depressed, less stress, having less conflict with your partner, and most importantly, having less conflict with your own children. So some of the skills that we previously covered that we think our children would need to do well in life would be having good communication, language, and social skills, being able to manage their emotions and feelings. So this means that children need to learn how to cope with all sorts of feelings. So not just the frustration, disappointment, but also the excitement, happiness as well. Our children need to learn how to calm themselves down when they get angry or upset, and know how to express their feelings without hurting others. Being able to do things for themselves and become independent in basic skills, such as dressing and getting ready to go out by themselves without the help of our parent, and being able to solve problems for themselves as well. So there are 5 key principles of positive parenting that can help our children learn these necessary skills. Don't worry, again, I'll go into more detail later on, but I'll just quickly cover these points now. So the first one would be to create a loving, safe, and interesting environment by being available and responsive and having lots of interesting things for our children to do. This also involves supervising children and knowing where they are, who they are with, and what they are doing at all times. The second point would be having a positive learning environment. This means an environment that is supportive, nurturing, where our children's efforts are acknowledged and talk or show them something. It is important to recognize that these times, sorry about this. Where I was at was having a supportive and nurturing environment, and where our children's efforts are acknowledged, and where they receive many praise, attention, and encouragement. That's the most important one. Adults need to know how to respond when our children approach them and want to talk or show them something. So it is important to recognize these times as opportunities for learning. The next one will be to use assertive discipline. So this means being fair, consistent, establishing ground rules, and having the confidence to enforce them by backing up what you say. So at this point, we want to also stress that it's important to have, when we say being fair, is that when you have a set of rules for one child, especially in families where you have more than one child or one children and their siblings, etc., it's important that everyone has the same set of rules and the same set of expectations. So having assertive discipline works best when our parents have realistic expectations of themselves and also of our children as well. For example, expecting your 5-year-old to supervise toddlers around deep water, such as at the beach or swimming pool with minimal adult supervision, it's not appropriate, as someone could seriously get hurt. And expecting that we as parents will be perfect and never make a mistake is also very unrealistic. Nobody is perfect, and everyone learns through trial and error. And lastly, the most important point here is to take care of yourself. So our ability to be positive, fair, patient, calm, and consistent is increased when we look after our own needs for intimacy, privacy, support, and also sometimes that means having a break from our children. So let's talk about the first principle, having a loving, safe, and interesting environment. So what does it really mean? It means being available to your children and have predictable daily routines within your family. So for example, you have a set morning routine. The children know what is expected of them, what they have to do before they get out of the door, or maybe an evening routine when they come back from school, for example. What is the routine? Do they watch TV first and then do homework and then it's dinner time? Or what, if you have a think, what is your daily routine at home? Ensure that your child is safe and supervised at all times. Make sure that your child has plenty of interesting things to do. Some other tips would be ensuring your child's safety. So teaching them about road safety, to look, listen, and think about traffic. Look out for the traffic lights before they cross the road, but also paying attention to the different cars as well. Provide appropriate clothing and safety equipment for children's activities. So for example, if they go on the bike, maybe think of having a helmet, etc. Take care near schools and other busy places to let them know that when they get out of cars or school buses, to make sure that they look out for other vehicles on the road. And also teach a child about the danger of talking to strangers and also what to do if they feel unsafe. So for example, can they come to you if they feel uncomfortable about something or someone, an adult maybe, or another child, or they're unhappy at school, something has happened, letting them know that they can come to you and talk to you. And also if they get lost, to go find the police to seek help, for example. So the benefits of creating a safe and interesting environment for children are that they would feel secure and wanted, they would feel safe, they would think that they live in a predictable world, they have lots of interesting things to do, and have opportunities to learn and experience success. And when our children live in a safe and interesting environment, if you know that they're living in a safe and interesting environment, you can be a bit more relaxed about parenting. A child can keep busy and develop their skills without the risk of getting hurt. So the next principle is having a positive learning environment. So let's look at some of the key strategies of having a positive learning environment. The first one would be to make time for your children. Comment on their play, their activity, or make observations often. So when they come to you with a drawing that they've done, if you're on your phone replying to emails, for example, can you put down your phone, look at their picture, and just say, oh, I really like, for example, this color that you used. Or if they made, I don't know, a picture of the sky, maybe you can give a bit of comment. Oh, it would be great if you can add rainbows, for example, or clouds. What do you think? And then they can go off and add different things, and you can get back to your email. But then your child would have that feeling, oh, mommy or daddy really paid attention. They really cared about what I did, and they can go off, continue, and then come back to you later. Another one would be to speak nicely to your child. This one would be to use a pleasant voice. Using a pleasant voice goes a very long way. The next one would be to chat and listen often. Make time to hear the stories of every child in the family. So this is very important, especially for children or families with many children or more than one child. It's important that you make time specifically for each individual child. So also share your own experience as well. So maybe at dinner time, if you guys have the routine of sharing about your day, it's good to not just ask your child to share about what they did at school. It will be good if you could share something about what happened to you at work, for example. It doesn't always have to be something positive. It could be you sharing about how you got angry at work, for example, and also what happened, how you dealt with it. And our children learn from us that way as well. They would know, oh, mommy was angry as well. How did mommy dealt with it? So there's a learning opportunity for our children in that sense as well. Another one would be to give lots of affection. Hugs, kisses, cuddles would make our children feel wanted and loved. Use descriptive praise so your child knows exactly what they've done that you appreciate. Praise works best when it is genuine and also in a very timely manner. So when you praise, for example, a toddler age, you might say, oh, I really like how you're sitting so nicely. Or if your child is a bit older and they're already doing homework, you could say something along the lines of, oh, I really appreciate how you focused so well today on your homework, or I really like how much effort you've put in, etc. So especially for younger children, if you wait and the moment has already passed, they might not know what you're referring to when you praise them. So it's good to make sure that your praise is descriptive, it is exact, and it is at the right time as well. Another one would be to give plenty of attention, such as by winking, smiling, or just watching. So for example, if you've already established that rapport with your child, so you don't always have to verbally praise them, maybe just a wink or a smile on the playground, for example, and then they can quickly go and play again. All of these can convey approval and care as well. Another one would be to use incidental teaching. So when your child approaches you about something, they are often motivated and ready to learn. So for example, when your child brings you something in the park, you could, for example, if it's an insect, would you be like, oh my God, throw that away, why'd you have that? Or do you think you can take the time and look at that beetle with them and say, oh, how many legs are there? Or what color it is? Or what texture it is? Or if your child is a bit older, maybe you guys can Google together what type of beetle it is, for example. Encourage them to continue to learn and continue with the activity, and to be able to describe their experiences more clearly. So they would be able to use more descriptive words, for example. And another one would be to get involved with your child's school as much as you can. So with the teachers, for example, understand what they're teaching at school, where your child is at, etc. So the third principle is using assertive discipline. So this involves being consistent, acting quickly when problems happen, and teaching children to recognize and manage their feelings and to behave in an acceptable way. Very important point. This involves staying calm and using fair, predictable consequences that match the problem behavior. So for example, don't say things like, I'll call the police if you don't behave. That is not a consequence that you would be able to back up if your child does continue to misbehave. And that does not really match the level of the problematic behavior. So all children need discipline. Assertive discipline can help our children to learn to accept necessary rules and limits, develop and control over their emotions. They can also start to be able to understand how to consider others' feelings. They can express their own feelings in ways that respect the needs of others and take responsibility for their actions, which is very important. So discipline works best when children live in a predictable world and receive plenty of attention for good behavior. So you can see this principle builds onto the other two principles that we've just mentioned. So it's also necessary for parents to have reasonable expectations and use fair, consistent, and predictable discipline from one day to the next. So make sure that consequences or the discipline that you're using or expecting of your child is consistent from one day to the other. So assertive discipline is most effective when parents and carers support each other and use the same approach to discipline. Sometimes if we're not on the same page and for the same behavior, maybe mommy has this consequence and then daddy has another consequence, and then maybe grandma and grandpa have different consequences. That would actually not be as good because our children could get confused as to what to expect. So assertive discipline involves several different strategies. So the first one would be to prepare for situations in advance. So this would mean being organized, avoiding last-minute rushing, and getting everything ready ahead of time. So for example, like we mentioned, the morning routine just now. If you know your morning routines are always very, very rushed, you're always rushing out the door, you guys are always forgetting something, a lunchbox or whatever, it might be time to consider that maybe you guys could prep ahead of time. So for example, you could pack the school bag with your child the night before, choose and pick what they want to wear, and then they could lay it out on their bed, decide what they want for breakfast maybe. And then if it's something like, for example, cereal, is that something that you could prep beforehand? So that you could make the morning routine as smooth as possible. So another one would be to ensure that your child has something to do. So take activities with you, especially if you're going somewhere or for times when you know there's very little for children to do. So for example, if you have to bring your child with you to a wedding, a lot of the times the weddings are for quite a long time and it goes on maybe to later on at night. So sometimes your child would get very bored because they're not going to be listening to what the MC is saying or paying attention to the video that's playing. It's always good to have a little few bits and pieces in your bag, different activities that they enjoy, maybe a storybook, maybe a puzzle, novels for older children maybe. So that they could do those activities while other adults are socializing and doing adult things that are too boring for them. And also to set some ground rules. Explain and discuss 2 or 3 simple rules that you would like your child to follow in a particular situation. Now, beware of this, to be mindful of how old your child is, what your expectations are. Is it realistic? That's something that we keep coming back to. And also whether they're able to remember and understand those rules as well. So pay attention when your child is behaving well. This is the one that we talked about previously as well. And when they are being cooperative, they're following the rules, congratulate them and praise them, especially when they're learning something new, because we want to encourage these behaviors. We want them to be doing these things over and over again. The next one would be to watch and supervise. Make sure you can see your child so that if a problem arises, you can deal with it straight away. You don't want to wait till it's manifested and it's getting out of control and then you're only just realizing and then going over. When it starts happening, you can see it brewing because you can often see when things start to go a bit south with your children. That would be a good point to intervene. Don't wait for it to brew and brew and brew until your child boils over. Another one would be to use planned ignoring for minor problems. So this one is for, it's designed for behaviors that our children do to get our attention. So also be mentally prepared that when you do use planned ignoring at the beginning, your child would probably, their behavior would seem to get worse before they slowly start to realize that this is not going to work. This is not going to get your attention. And then they would then slowly calm down. The next one will be to use your voice effectively. Get close to your child, stay calm, and use a firm voice. I think you've probably realized that when you're in the kitchen and you want your child to come help set the table and they're in the living room playing with their toys, they're very involved with playing their toys. And no matter how much you scream or shout or how loud you are, they can't hear you. They're not going to be able to put down their toys and come and help you set the table. So you're wasting your shouting and your anger or nothing. You could try and go to your child, best to get on their eye level, and very firmly and calmly tell them what you want them to do. So once you've got some ground rules in place, you need to be prepared to enforce them. So there are a number of options for this. So use directed discussion to deal with rule breaking. Ask your child and tell you what the rule is that they've broken and to get them to practice what they should have done. So for example, if the rule is you cannot play or kick the ball in the apartment and your child starts doing that, you could stop them, ask them what the rule is about playing the ball inside. And then once they're able to tell you what the rule is that they've broken, you can then tell them, okay, so now you can play the ball outside. Do you want to go to the park, for example? The next one would be to give clear, calm instructions to let your child know what you want them to do. So one thing would be start instructions. So these are used to tell your child to begin an activity or behavior, such as you can say things like, Crystal, turn the TV off, please, and come to the bath. Another one would be stop instructions. So these are used when a problem is happening and you want your child to stop doing something. After that, follow up with what you want them to do. So for example, you can say something like, Kurt, stop pushing your sister. Keep your hands to yourself. So in general, try to repeat a start instruction only once and do not repeat a stop instruction at all. So after you've given the instruction, wait 5 seconds to see if your child does what you're asking. If not, back it up with a consequence. So some backups for not following instructions could include taking a problematic activity away from the child, or the child away from the activity for a short period of time. So for example, if they're fighting over a toy with another child, a playmate, or maybe their sibling, you can take away the ball, for example, if that's what they're fighting over. Wait for a while, short period of time, maybe 2-3 minutes, and then you can return the ball back to the children and ask them to try again in sharing, for example. And the next step would be, if this is not working, would be quiet time. Or in situations where they've ignored 2 start instructions. So if you remember just now, we said we could repeat a start instruction only once. So you've given it twice already, they're still not doing it, then you might want to consider quiet time. So this would mean removing them from the activity in which the problem occurred and having them sit quietly on the edge of the activity. So they're still within the proximity, but they're no longer joining in. So once the time has passed, again, maybe a short period of time, 2 to 3 minutes maybe, and if they are able to stay quiet during that quiet time as well, they can then rejoin the activity. So this is normally done within the same room where the problem has occurred. So for younger children up to 18 months, their crib or playpen can be used. And for older children, they can sit on the floor or on a chair. So it's important to note that during this time, you're not giving the attention to your child. You're not constantly asking them to keep quiet because that's engaging with them in that behavior. So you're expecting them to stay quiet, and you would have a timer. And if they start making noise, you can reset the timer, for example, if your child is able to understand that concept. And then once they were able to sit through that 3 minutes, for example, without screaming or saying anything, then they can go back to the activity. Or of course, you can always ask them and see if they want to go back to the activity or if they wanted to do something else. Another one would be time out. So if quiet time is not working, you can consider using time out. And timeout is for serious problems such as extreme temper outbursts or hurting others, or as I mentioned, as a backup if your child is not quiet within quiet time. So during timeout, you would take your child to a different room or a different area where it is safe. It is a quiet area, and it is further away from where the problem has occurred. And then you would wait for them to be quiet for around 2 to 3 minutes, again, the same time frame. And then afterwards, they can then come out from timeout again. A very important thing is, during timeout, it's not that you're just leaving your child in the corner and just leaving them, right? You're still supervising, you're still going to be checking on them out of the corner of your eye. You're not paying them the attention that they want, but you're still supervising, making sure that they are safe and they are being supervised. Another thing to note is that if you want to put your child in their own bedrooms for time out, make sure that there aren't a lot of toys lying around. If there are a lot of toys, different books, things that they enjoy doing, then probably their bedroom is not the right place for time out. You want them to be able to sit and really be quiet instead of getting distracted or have other things to play or do. So the next principle is to have positive parenting work best is to have fair and realistic expectations of your child and yourself. So what do we mean by that? To check if your expectations are realistic, we can always ask ourselves, what rules or expectations do I have? Is this rule really necessary, or could we get by without it? Can my child understand this rule, or are they old enough to be able to do this? Another one would be to check whether other parents expect the same of the children which is at the same age, or what the school expects of your child. Maybe you can compare to other parents you know. Are you expecting too much, or are you expecting too little compared to them? Finally, ask yourself, are my expectations of myself reasonable? When we have very, very high standards and expect a lot of ourselves, it can create a lot of extra stress. The final principle is about taking care of yourself. Parenting is easier when our own needs have been met. This principle involves a number of different skills, including balancing work, life, family commitments, talking back to negative thinking, and getting support for your parenting by working as a team. For working parents, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are, one of the first things to consider is getting the right balance between work and home. So I know this is hard, easier said than done. Here are some ideas on how to achieve a good balance. So for example, this part, I think it's very hard for Hong Kong working parents, but this is what has been suggested, that at work, have realistic expectations of yourself. Excessive workloads can add extra stress. And if your work is worrying you a lot or causing stress on the family, try to reassess your priorities. So be prepared to reduce unnecessary or unreasonable commitments, such as reducing working hours where possible and limiting other activities, such as, you know how before I mentioned to get involved with your child's school. So some parents do get involved by maybe being the coach on the sports team, for example. And when we're talking about reducing unnecessary or unreasonable commitments, we're talking about maybe being the coach for maybe a term instead of committing yourself to the whole year, maybe, or maybe just committing to a few sessions if that's possible. Explore different ways or opportunities that you could get involved. Another one would be to develop a good transitional time routine before and after work. So this way everyone knows and is prepared what to expect. To try to avoid conflict in a difficult time when everyone gets home and when everybody's rushing out to get ready to go out of the door to go to school or to work, you can set like good routines, like I mentioned before. Another one would be if you have a partner or different caregivers in the home, making sure that you guys were discussing whether you can have shifts, for example. Maybe one can come home, one would help with homework, another one can help prepare dinner. And then maybe after that, whoever made dinner can take a bit of a break, and then the other person can get the children ready for bed. So plan a strategy to get through the difficult times. So have a set routine, like I mentioned, or maybe before dinner when it's like one is trying to get the kid to stop playing with the Lego and one is trying to turn off the TV, for example. You can set a very strict routine so everyone knows what to expect, when to turn off the TV, when to put down the toys, and when it is time to come to the table for dinner. Another one would be to teach your child to be independent and to take some responsibility in getting themselves ready for the day. So when I mentioned earlier, when we said they can pick out what they want to wear the night before, maybe they can then fold the clothes themselves. Another one would be to use the toilet themselves, cleaning their teeth. Another one would be packing their own school bag, going through their own little notebook maybe to work out what they need to bring to school. what they need to wear. Maybe you guys can add in a little routine where you guys check the weather for the next day so they know whether they need to bring an umbrella, for example. So these would be a very good way to teach a child how to be independent. So the last one would be to organize reliable before school and after school care if you need that. So parents would find it easier to relax and focus on work if you are happy with who is looking after your children and you know who is looking after your children. So as we can imagine, our parenting is greatly affected by our emotions. When we feel stressed, angry, depressed, or anxious, it is much harder to be patient, calm, and consistent with our children. The key to reducing stress is to talk back to negative thinking. So the things that we say to ourselves about our children can really affect how we react. So for example, some unhelpful thoughts could be putting blame on our children, the negative comments, or like maybe even sometimes catastrophic. So some of the unhelpful thoughts could be, he knew, so my child, he knew I was tired. Instead, we could change it into thinking, oh, well, we're both very tired. Another one would be, she did that on purpose to upset me. Another way of thinking about it could be, oh, maybe she's bored when I was on the phone and she's trying to get my attention. He's never going to learn. That's something that we hear quite a lot. Another way that we change it could be, it would take some time for my child to learn this. So another one would be, she's just bad. Another way of thinking about it, instead of thinking a child being bad, would be that the behavior was bad or the behavior was annoying. So changing it into a more helpful thought could make it more realistic. We can look at situations in a different perspective. It could give us, it could help us look into the different reasons for how or why our children are behaving this way. And we're focusing on the behavior rather than pinpointing it onto our child themselves. So these helpful thoughts could help us stay calmer, feel better, use our positive parenting strategies, and to identify solutions to our problem. So to talk back to negative thinking, we can try these steps. So notice the times when you are feeling upset or angry with your child. Identify what negative or unhelpful thing you're saying to yourself about the situation, particularly about why it is happening. Negative explanations for a child's actions usually refer to something, some negative trait of the child, such as he's really nasty and always deliberately trying to upset his little brother. So these would be actually attacking the child themselves instead of focusing on the behavior. So counter these negative thoughts with more helpful and rational thoughts. So parenting is easier when parents and carers work as a team and can back each other up. So you can try talking with your partner and other carers about daily experiences with your child. This keeps everyone involved and informed. So even if you have to work long hours during the week, maybe your partner or other caregivers can update you on what they did with your child, what they did at school, or maybe even after school when they're at home, different activities that they did together. And then you can then feel that you're still involved and informed of what your child is doing. And over the weekend, you might be able to talk about these things with your child, share with them, oh, how did they feel about maybe having dumplings with their grandpa, for example? How was that? Was it tasty, for example? You can also try to share, the workload fairly. I know this can be very difficult because maybe historically it's been set this way and this is how things are being done in families. That's completely understandable, but try and see if you can negotiate something differently. Be prepared to discuss and negotiate who does what around the house and then caring for the child. So it's not just about childcare responsibilities. There's also a lot of different houseworks that needs to be done as well. And that could be very tiring. So that your child knows what to expect, reach agreements between carers on methods of discipline, and back each other up. So the worst thing that could happen is you're trying to discipline your child, and then your partner or someone else comes in and undermines what you're trying to do, or vice versa. When your partner's trying to discipline or give the consequence, you're trying to make light of the situation and not really give the consequence. So we want to be able to back each other up so that everyone is on the same page. Help your child learn to solve problems by using problem-solving skills yourself, and having regular family problem-solving discussions. So this could be referring back to an example that I raised earlier when you're sharing your own story with your child, whether it's something you did at work, or maybe you're sharing some of your childhood stories as well. So for example, you can share when you were maybe also 8 years old, you had a fight with your friend and how upset you felt or how you dealt with it, etc. So demonstrating those problem-solving skills to your child and giving them that opportunity to maybe gain or learn something from that experience. So let's look at some of the key take-home messages from tonight. Parenting is more enjoyable when you make your child and your family a priority. So look at parenting as an opportunity to grow together with your child. You can get support from your parenting by meeting other parents, and getting involved in programs such as this program, the Triple P program. So tonight we talked a lot about very generic strategies, about what positive parenting really is. You might find these quite generic, and you might want some more tailor-made skills or tailor-made strategies for your family and also for your children. So we will be hopefully running a more extensive program on Triple P. That one would consist of 6 group sessions and also 2 optional individual sessions with one of our psychologists, and that would be in English. And then we also offer this in Cantonese as well. So that one would be done in Cantonese, and the program name would be called Happy Parenting, and that would be run by our head of services, who's a teacher. So these are 2 other programs that you might want to consider, and also, of course, the 2 remaining seminars in the coming 2 weeks. So remember, the key aspects of positive parenting are creating a warm, loving, and safe environment for your child, using positive strategies to encourage your child's learning, using assertive discipline to help your child take responsibility for their own actions, having reasonable expectation of both your child and yourself, and taking care of yourself by looking after your own needs, balancing responsibilities where possible, changing negative thinking, and most importantly, working as a team.